They say the forest speaks, but only to those willing to listen. For generations, no one dared step beyond the twisted roots of the whispering forest. The elders warned of strange voices, of eyes watching from the shadows, and of people who wandered in, only to vanish without a trace. Some called it superstition. Others said it was just an old story told to keep children from getting lost. But deep down, everyone in the village knew. The forest was cursed, and whatever lived in there, wanted to be heard. A towering baobab tree, bleeding red from its roots. And then, a voice. Not angry, not cruel, just broken, desperate, repeating one question. Ayanda never believed the tales, not really. Raised on the edge of the village by her grandmother, she was used to whispers, the ones people made behind her back, silver-eyed girl, they'd say, marked by something unnatural. Children were told not to play with her. Mothers pulled their babies close when she walked by. They feared her, the same way they feared the forest. But Ayanda wasn't afraid, because for as long as she could remember, the forest hadn't just whispered, it had called to her. You could stand at the edge of the trees and feel it, and fear. Every night, it was the same dream, according to old stories. The kind whispered late at night and quickly dismissed come morning. That land once belonged to a forgotten tribe, one that vanished without a trace. Some say they were wiped out. Others say they simply disappeared. But whatever happened, one thing was clear. A trail of fireflies leading her beneath the trees. And Ayanda, the outcast, found herself at the center of a mystery buried deeper than the roots of that cursed forest. Low and soft, like a breath on the back of your neck, still no one ever walked into those woods alone. They all disappeared near the edge of the woods, with no sign of struggle. No footprints, no blood, nothing. Some claimed they heard their name whispered as they passed by. Others said the trees watched them, not in a metaphorical way, literally watched them. Can you hear me? She never told anyone, not even her grandmother, until the day the boy went missing, so that the truth would not only tear her world apart. Now the village was panicking. People were pointing fingers. What she didn't know, it would reveal a horrifying secret her village had spent generations trying to bury. That quiet tension in the air, like something holding its breath just beneath the surface. The villagers didn't talk about the forest. They avoided even looking at it for too long. Children were warned never to get too close. Livestock that wandered too near didn't come back, but no one ever said why. There were no fences, no signs, no posted warnings, just silence. The whispering forest had been part of the land long before the village was built. That forest had not forgotten. The wind that moved through the trees didn't rustle. It murmured. But most villagers refused to acknowledge any of it. They called it imagination, superstition. It's nonsense. Because even if they didn't believe in the stories, they'd never tested them. But there was one thing they couldn't explain away. People vanished. Over the years, quietly and without warning, a hunter, a traveler, a curious child, just gone. The elders never gave answers. They'd say it's the price and then fall silent. Price for what? No one knew. Or if they did, they weren't saying. Whispering to anyone willing or foolish enough to listen. And so, generation after generation, the forest remained untouched, feared, ignored, but Ayanda had always listened. And at night, in her dreams, she heard the voice clearer than ever, not just whispering, calling. From the time she could walk, she felt the pull. Something in the rustling leaves sounded like a song only she could hear. She would find out why. And when the midwife saw the child's eyes, pale silver, almost glowing, she dropped the baby and whispered a prayer. It was a sign, she said. A bad one. Something unnatural, something cursed, as if the forest was waiting for her. And soon, Ayanda was born during the coldest season her village had ever seen. The elders wouldn't even look her in the eye. People whispered behind her back, muttering words like spirit child and marked by the dead. The wind howled for days. Crops withered overnight. From that moment on, Ayanda's life was shaped by fear. But not her own, theirs. The village never accepted her. Children were told not to speak to her. Mothers crossed themselves when she passed. Fireflies swirled around her like stars, leading her deeper into the trees. The air would turn cold, the shadows would stretch unnaturally long. And then came the voice. She grew up on the edge of the village in a crooked mud brick house, raised by her grandmother, Nana Kwesi, a healer, a midwife, and the only one who dared stand between Ayanda and the rest of the village. While fetching water, Ayanda heard a group of boys mocking her from across the stream. "Hey, ghost girl," one of them shouted. "If you're so special, why don't you talk to the forest spirits for us?" They laughed, but Ayanda didn't flinch. She just stared, calm, cold, hunted, its bark cracked and bleeding, its roots writhing. And beneath it, something buried. Something she was never able to see before waking, treated like a disease, wanted them to know. Nana said her silver eyes were a gift, sign that Ayanda could see what others refused to. But Ayanda didn't feel gifted, she felt watched. And worst of all, different. As she grew older, the dreams began. It happened just before sunset. It always started the same way, standing beneath a blood-red moon, staring at the forest, soft, familiar, terrified. "Please, come find me." Each night the dream would end with her reaching a massive baobab tree at the center of the forest. She never told Nana. She wasn't sure if she was losing her mind, or if the forest was trying to show her something it couldn't tell anyone else. One morning, they stopped laughing. She didn't want to scare them, but a part of her, the part that had been ignored, pushed away. She didn't need to talk to the forest. And as the voice in her dreams grew louder, so did the sense that something was coming, something no one was ready for. The sky was streaked in gold and purple, and the village was quiet, too quiet. The older children had returned from the fields, the smaller ones had come in from play. But when the sun dipped behind the hills, and still no one had seen him, panic started to set in. But when Mama Deed began calling for her son Kojo, there was no answer. Too young to stray far, and everyone knew the danger that came with darkness. At first, it seemed innocent. Maybe he'd wandered off. Maybe he was playing with the other boys. Some even dared to venture near the edge of the forest, but not past it. No one crossed the boundary, not even for a missing child. Kojo was only 6. No torn clothes, no signs of struggle. Out. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. The men formed a search party. They fanned out across the village, calling his name, checking huts, wells, nearby paths. That's when Ayanda heard it. A faint, high-pitched hum carried on the wind. Not music, not a voice, but something unnatural. She looked toward the trees, and for the first time in years, faces drawn tight, lips pressed in silence. They stood in a line, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. One of them, Elder Sefu, the oldest, spoke just for words. She saw something watching her back. By morning, hope had curdled into fear. There was still no trace of Kojo, no footprints. But then, something strange happened. As the villagers gathered in the square, the elders appeared. All of them. It has begun again. No one asked what he meant. No one needed to. People started whispering. Some blamed spirits, others pointed toward the forest. And slowly, those whispers turned toward Ayanda. She always watches the woods. She walks alone, like something follows her. She's not like us. It didn't take long before someone said it out loud. This is her fault. Ayanda didn't flinch. She'd grown used to being their scapegoat. But this time felt different. The stares were sharper. The fear in their eyes was deeper. Even Nana Kwesi couldn't calm the crowd, because deep down, everyone knew what no one dared say. The forest had taken Kojo. The trees moved as if they were breathing, slow and steady, like something was alive just beneath their surface. But regret. And it had started with Ayanda's dream. That night, Ayanda didn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the trees sway in the dark. And from the satchel, Nana pulled out something wrapped in old cloth, a faded, brittle scroll written in a language Ayanda didn't recognize. Burned symbols, worn ink, but one drawing stood out clearly, and just before dawn, she heard the voice again. "You saw what they did? You can't let them hide it." It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a warning. And Ayanda had to decide. Stay silent and safe, or follow the whispers into the dark. a tribe of forest dwellers who lived in harmony with the spirits of the land, what some called gods and others called ancestors. The baobab tree, the one Ayanda always dreamed of, stood at the center of that sacred site. Its roots wrapped around the bones of the betrayed, built new homes over the graves, and made a rule: never speak of what happened before. They believed the trees held memory, that the forest listened, and that all actions, good or evil, rooted themselves deep in the earth. Always the innocent, always the young, like it was demanding payment, not revenge, but remembrance. Ayanda didn't speak all morning. While the village buzzed with rumors and fear, she sat outside Nana Kwesi's hut, staring at the forest line like it was staring back. That's when Nana appeared behind her, carrying a worn satchel and an expression Ayanda had never seen before. Not fear. "It's time you knew," she said. They went inside. A village, a tree, and a line of bodies buried beneath it. Nana's voice shook as she spoke. "Was waiting. Long ago, before the village ever existed, that land belonged to another people. But when outsiders came, settlers looking for fertile soil, they didn't ask permission. They took. They pushed the old tribe into the shadows, desecrated sacred grounds, and buried their dead beneath what is now the village square." Ayanda stood alone in the forest, surrounded by trees that leaned toward her, their branches twisted like hands. The ground pulsed beneath her feet, each beat like a heartbeat, not hers. "They say the spirit screamed," Nana whispered, but no one listened. But this time, it was bleeding. After that, the land changed. Storms came without warning. Children disappeared. Crops rotted from the inside. People began hearing voices that weren't there. The forest grew darker with each step, the trees taller, older, their trunks carved with symbols that burned in her vision even when she looked away. But the image wouldn't leave her. The bleeding tree, the word etched into bark, the sense of something buried. Just beneath her feet, the elders at the time called it madness. They burned the scrolls, banned the old language. But the curse didn't care about silence. The roots twisted and curled like they were alive, digging into the earth, choking something beneath. And etched into the trunk was a single word in the forgotten language. Every few decades, the forest would reach out again, taking one, then another. Ayanda stared at the scroll, her heart pounding. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. Nana's eyes were glassy. "Because you're not just part of this, Ayanda. You are the key to ending it." The forest hadn't chosen her at random. It had chosen her because she carried something no one else did. Not just the silver eyes, but the blood of both sides. She wasn't just the cursed child. She was the bridge. And the forest. That night, the dream was different. It came heavier, louder, like the air inside her head was made of thunder. And then the fireflies appeared again. Not glowing gold this time, but blood red. They floated slowly through the air, weaving a path that cut through the trees. She followed, breath shallow, heart hammering. Finally, she saw it. The baobab tree, just like in the stories, just like in her dreams. It stood taller than any hut in the village, wide enough to swallow 5 men whole. Thick black-red sap oozed from its bark like open wounds. Ayanda didn't recognize it, but she understood it. Confess. She woke up gasping, her palms were sweating, her sheets were damp. At dawn, Ayanda returned to Nana Kwesi. "Take me there," she said. Nana's face went pale. "No one goes to that tree." But Ayanda didn't ask again. She packed a satchel, water, a cloth wrap, a few dried herbs. She wasn't sure what she'd find, but every part of her soul was pulling toward it. Not just curiosity, purpose. The forest didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like truth, waiting to be uncovered. Heavier still, the light dimmed, even though the sky was clear. And with every step she took, the whispers grew louder. She stepped past the boundary. That invisible line no one ever crossed. The air shifted, not outside her, inside. They weren't just calling her now. They were remembering through her. And then, just ahead, she saw it. Half buried in vines, cloaked in shadow, the massive baobab tree stood exactly as it had in her dreams, bleeding from the bark, groaning in the wind like something alive and in pain. She stepped closer. At the base of the trunk, carved deep into the bark, she saw something new. It's not just words, faces, screaming, crying, silent, frozen in the wood, trapped beneath layers of hardened sap. Not drawn or etched, but shaped, as if the tree had swallowed them whole and refused to let them go. Ayanda dropped to her knees, and for the first time, she felt the curse, waiting, demanding justice. It was a living memory, a warning. A prisoner of secrets, too painful to speak aloud. But safety had never been an option for Ayanda. It's not really. Whatever lay beneath was tied to her past, to her bloodline, to the very soul of the village. The silver in her eyes wasn't a curse. It was a mark, a responsibility she could no longer ignore. The air was thick with silence, but inside her, a storm was raging. Confusion, fear, and something stronger. Determination. It's not like a spell or a myth or a bedtime story, but like a wound in the earth, festering. Ayanda knelt before the baobab tree, the faces frozen in its bark, haunting her like ghosts pleading for release. She knew what everyone in the village refused to admit. The forest was unteed, just a place of danger, and now it was calling her. Nana's warnings echoed in her mind. No one goes near the tree. It's not safe. She looked up at the bleeding bark, the twisted roots writhing like trapped snakes. The question wasn't if she would go deeper, it was when and how she would survive what waited. The air was thick, almost heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. No birds sang here, no wind stirred the leaves. It was as if the forest waited for her to decide. The forest wasn't just whispering anymore, it was screaming. It's demanding justice, demanding truth. Ayanda rose, a fire lighting inside her chest. If the forest wanted her to listen, then she would. She would uncover the secrets no one dared speak. She would face whatever lay beneath those roots. She would make sure the voices trapped in the tree were finally heard. Because the story of her village, and her own, was far from over, and this was only the beginning. Ayanda stood at the edge of the forest, invisible line between her world and the one whispered about in fears and legends. One step, then another. The moment her foot crossed the boundary, the world shifted. Colors darkened, shadows stretched longer. The scent of damp earth and ancient wood filled her lungs, deeper than any she had known. The forest wasn't silent anymore. It hummed. Low, steady, like the heartbeat of something massive and unseen. Branches arched above her like towering arches in a cathedral, carved not by human hands but by time itself. The forest remembered. It remembered the betrayal, the broken promises, the blood spilled beneath the soil. She wasn't just walking through trees, she was walking through centuries of pain and anger. Strange symbols, twisted spirals and broken circles etched into the bark, pulsed faintly with an eerie blue light.
Ow.
They seemed to watch her, judging, waiting. Something ancient, like a whisper from her ancestors, telling her she belonged here. With every step deeper, Ayanda felt the weight of generations pressing down. And yet, amid the silence and shadow, a flicker of warmth touched her chest. The path ahead was tangled and dark, but Ayanda knew she had no choice. To save her village, to save herself, she had to keep going, because the forest had begun to speak. A whispering breeze swept through the leaves, carrying voices not quite human, soft, mournful, barely audible. But the pact was broken by greed and violence, and with it, the curse was born. Ayanda froze. And this time, it wouldn't be silenced. The blue symbols on the bark glowed brighter now, pulsing like a slow, steady heartbeat, guiding her through the shadows. The path ahead was darker, more dangerous. But now, she had a purpose. Only with these can the forest's cry be answered. As Ayanda moved deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in tighter, their twisted branches forming a maze that blurred the path beneath her feet. Suddenly, the air grew cold. At its base was the entrance to a cave, narrow, dark, and foreboding. The forest remembers the wound, the betrayal that poisoned this land. Every step felt heavier, as if the soil itself resisted her passage. Yet she moved forward, driven by the weight of the secret she now carried. The spirits of the old tribe had emerged, their eyes pools of endless sorrow and ancient wisdom. Before her, shimmering shapes took form, translucent figures draped in faded cloth and crowned with leaves. One stepped forward, their voice a hollow echo. "Child of two bloodlines, bearer of silver eyes, you tread where others fear to go." They spoke of a pact made long ago between the tribe and the spirits of the land, a promise to protect the sacred balance. The spirits warned Ayanda that the forest's hunger was growing, that it would not stop until the debt was paid, not in silence, but in truth. Yet amidst their warning came a fragile hope. To break the cycle, 3 relics must be found: the bone of the ancestor, feather of the sky, and the tear of the earth. As the spirits faded back into the mist, Ayanda was left with more questions than answers. The forest wasn't just a prison for the past, it was a battleground for the future. With the spirit's warning echoing in her mind, Ayanda pressed deeper into the forest's heart. The blue symbols on the trees pulsed stronger, lighting her way through dense underbrush until she reached a steep hill nearly hidden beneath thick vines and moss. Carved above it was the same symbol she had seen on the scroll, a spiraled bone intertwined with a tree root. Taking a deep breath, Ayanda entered. Inside, the air was cool and damp, alive with a faint hum. The walls were etched with ancient carvings, scenes of the old tribe's last days, rituals under the baobab tree, offerings made to the spirits, and a final desperate plea for forgiveness. As Ayanda reached out to touch it, a surge of visions exploded behind her eyelids. At the cave's deepest chamber lay the relic, a single bone, long and curved, marked with symbols that shimmered faintly in the darkness. She saw the tribe gathered in sorrow and anger, their voices rising in a chorus of grief. She saw betrayal, a shadowy figure breaking the sacred pact, igniting the curse that still haunted the land. The relic pulsed with power, but with it came a warning. The forest's guardian was awakening. Clutching the bone of the ancestor tightly, she darted toward the exit, heart pounding in rhythm with the beast's heavy footsteps behind her. A low growl echoed through the cave's mouth. Ayanda's heart raced. Shadow Beast was coming. The growl reverberated through the cave like thunder. Ayanda didn't hesitate. But Ayanda wasn't just running for her life. She was running for the future of her village, for the voices trapped beneath the baobab tree. The guardian crashed after her, tearing the earth where she had just been. The chase had been a test, a brutal reminder that the forest would not give up its secrets easily. Shadowy and enormous, it moved like liquid darkness, its glowing eyes cutting through the gloom like burning coals. Every step it took shook the earth beneath her feet. The forest guardian was no ordinary creature. Branches clawed at her arms and face as she sprinted through the thick underbrush, the beast's snarls growing closer, louder. Suddenly, a fallen log blocked her path. Without stopping, she vaulted over it, scraping her hands on rough bark. She zigzagged between ancient trees, her breath ragged, muscles burning. She spun around, eyes wide, clutching the bone of the ancestor like a shield. "I know what you're trying to do. The village is scared, but I want to help." Then, recalling the carvings she'd seen in the cave, she veered toward a narrow ravine, hoping the beast wouldn't follow. Still, Kofi's knowledge of the forest's hidden paths could be invaluable. Villagers, armed with torches and fear, were hunting her. The shadow hesitated at the ravine's edge, unable or unwilling to cross the deep divide. "We don't have much time. If we're going to find the next relic, you'll need someone who knows the forest and its dangers." Panting, Ayanda leaned against a tree, the relic warm in her hands, but she had survived, and now with the bone of the ancestor in her possession, she had the first key to unlocking the curse. Still, the forest's hunger was far from sated. In return, the spirits would watch over the land, keeping it fertile and safe. There were more relics to find, more truths to face, and Ayanda was only just beginning. As Ayanda caught her breath, a rustle came from the shadows. Moss clung to its edges, and faded carvings told a story older than any villager dared to speak aloud. Out stepped Kofi, a young man from her village, his expression guarded but determined. "I've been following you," he said quietly. Ayanda narrowed her eyes. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not with the forest watching, and not with the secrets she'd uncovered. But something about him felt off, like he carried his own burden, a secret that could either aid her or doom her mission. Before she could respond, distant voices echoed through the trees. "They're coming," Ayanda said. "They think I'm cursed." Kofi stepped closer, urgency in his voice. Ayanda faced a choice: trust Kofi and risk betrayal, or go it alone and face the forest's wrath without an ally. The weight of the decision pressed down on her. But the curse was growing stronger, and the path forward only darker. Together or alone, Ayanda knew one thing for certain: running was no longer an option. Under a shrouded canopy, Ayanda and Kofi approached an ancient stone altar, worn smooth by centuries, but still radiating an undeniable power. This was where the old tribe had made a sacred pact with the spirits, an unbreakable promise to honor the forest and protect its balance. But something had gone terribly wrong. Carved deep into the altar were the marks of betrayal. Clawed shattered, a symbol of broken trust. Ayanda traced the worn symbols with trembling fingers, feeling the weight of her ancestors' mistakes pressing down. The curse was no accident. It was punishment. A wound that festered because the pact had been shattered. The forest's hunger wasn't random. It was a demand for justice, for truth, for restoration. It's on your family, Ayanda. Your bloodline carries the legacy and the burden. Kofi's voice broke the silence. The curse isn't just on the land. It was a journey into her own past, into secrets buried beneath layers of fear and silence. Ayanda swallowed hard. This wasn't just a journey through the forest. The relics were more than keys. They were chances to heal the broken bond. But the forest wasn't waiting. Time was running out. Ayanda and Kofi climbed higher than they ever had, reaching the towering baobabs, where the feather of the sky was said to rest. The spirits of the air, unseen but felt, stirred restlessly around them, guardians of the feather's sacred power. The forest's canopy stretched like a vast, tangled ceiling above them. Sunlight filtering through leaves that whispered secrets in the wind. The feather was more than a relic. It was a symbol of sacrifice and hope. But the forest wasn't about to give up its secrets easily. Storm clouds gathered swiftly, twisting the air with sudden gusts and flickers of lightning. His usual calm replaced by a flicker of something darker. Finally, all this time, she thought he was an ally, but now doubt crept in. Could she trust him? Near a clearing bathed in fading light, he stopped. As branches swayed violently, illusions flickered before Ayanda's eyes, visions of freedom and loss, of soaring eagles and falling stars. A sudden rustle in the bushes jolted them both. The forest wasn't done testing their resolve. He said. Ayanda reached into the cool water, and as her fingers brushed the smooth, glowing stone, the tear of the earth images swirled around her, revealing the full cost of the broken pact. Voice low, my family. Visions flooded her mind, faces of ancestors, moments of heartbreak and courage intertwined. The weight of his own legacy pressing down. The spring was not just a place, but a memory, a living testament to the village's fractured history. We were part of the betrayal. Fear had taken root deeper than the forest's shadows. Torches flickered wildly in the hands of villagers gripped by superstition and suspicion. The curse isn't just on your bloodline, it's tied to mine as well. To claim it, Ayanda had to step beyond fear and reach into the unknown. Its waters clear yet deep, reflecting the tangled branches overhead. The tear of the earth was said to lie beneath these waters, guarded by the spirits of those who had suffered the most. With a breath steady but heart racing, she stretched out her hand, and the feather of the sky settled gently into her palm. Kofi continued. Ayanda had to confront the darkest parts of her past, the betrayals, the losses, and the unspoken fears that had haunted generations. Ayanda weighed her options. Could she risk trusting Kofi, or was his secret a threat too dangerous to ignore? Could trust ever be fully restored? But I'm haunted by what my ancestors did. I want to make it right, but it's not easy to undo generations of pain. But in that moment, she realized the price some freedoms demanded a sacrifice deeper than she had imagined. The forest seemed quieter now, but the weight between Ayanda and Kofi grew heavier with every step. The feather of the sky felt cool in her hand, a fragile promise of hope, but the air was thick with unspoken words. Kofi's eyes darted nervously. There's something you need to know. Ayanda's heart clenched. I came here to help. The tension was palpable. Before she could respond, the question lingered. In a world built on broken promises, Ayanda stood at the edge of a shimmering spring. As she stepped closer to retrieve the tear, Kofi watched silently, with steady hands. This relic held the power to heal, but demanded truth, a reckoning that could shatter or save everything. Ayanda's feet touched the worn path back to her village, but the place she knew had shifted. Whispers of curses and omens filled the air. Families huddled behind locked doors, eyes darting to every rustle in the night. Ayanda's heart ached. The village was fracturing under the weight of its own fears, turning on itself rather than facing the truth. She called out, but her voice was drowned by the rising panic. The broken pact was no longer just a story, it was a living nightmare, threatening to consume everyone. Ayanda knew that to save her home, she had to confront not only the curse but the mistrust and pain within her people. The hardest battle was yet to come. Under the ancient baobab, its massive branches stretching toward the twilight sky, Ayanda laid out the three relics: the bone of the ancestor, the feather of the sky, and the tear of the earth. The air buzzed with anticipation. The forest seemed to hold its breath. She began the ritual, chanting words long forgotten, weaving together the stories and pain of her ancestors. The forest's balance required more than relics. It needed a guardian willing to carry the burden. The relics glowed, pulsing in time with her heartbeat, each one releasing a different energy: strength, sacrifice, and sorrow. As the first light of dawn filtered through the baobab's branches, the forest breathed a quiet sigh. The curse that had long haunted the land began to lift, the shadows retreating like a fading storm. As the ritual deepened, the ground trembled. The relics, now resting peacefully beneath the tree, were symbols of healing and remembrance. The spirits rose, swirling around the tree, in a dance of light and shadow. The curse began to unravel, threads of darkness fading beneath the growing glow. But the ritual demanded a price, a sacrifice only Ayanda could give. There are still pieces missing, secrets buried deeper than you think, and shadows moving that no one's dared name. Yet, Ayanda's resolve hardened. To heal the past, she had to embrace her destiny. The forest's future was tied to hers. Ayanda stood tall, feeling the weight of the past settle into something lighter, a promise rather than a burden. Her village slowly emerged from fear, beginning the slow, fragile work of rebuilding trust and connection with each other and with the forest. Ayanda became more than a survivor. She became a guardian, a bridge between the world of spirits and people, tasked with protecting the balance her ancestors once broke. The story of the curse transformed into a legend, a warning and a hope carried forward by generations yet to come. In the heart of the ancient forest, life stirred anew. On Ayanda's journey was just the beginning. If Amanda's story shook you, the truth hidden beneath silence and fear gave you chills, Dawn T, let this be the last you hear of her. Subscribe if you want to uncover the next chapter. Like if you believe strength comes not from what we hide, but what we survive. Comment below. What would you have done if you were Amanda? Because in some stories, survival is just the beginning.